Max Granger walked into the firm like he owned it. Tailored suit, smug grin, and absolutely no clue what we actually did. "Call me Max," he said during his first all hands, like we were his startup buddies, not a 500-person infrastructure firm. Before lunch that day, he'd already canceled our weekly ops sync, something we'd been running for nearly a decade. By 4 p.m., he had fired 2 longtime team leads via email. No warning, just an HR template and a sorry excuse for a signature. My name's Rick Brenner. I'm 46 years old, and I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been with Limestone Tech for over 11 years, survived 3 different owners, 5 COOs, and even a hostile buyout by a private equity firm. Nothing really surprised me anymore. Until Max. He didn't ask about our systems, didn't request a walkthrough or a sit down with the engineering heads. Just walked into our team area, looked around like he was assessing a thrift store, and muttered, "We'll clean this up." I heard it clear as day. He didn't even know who we were. 72 hours in, he renamed our core infrastructure platform Legacy Ops, said it was outdated and bloated. That was my system. I'd built it from scratch after the second acquisition, wrote the back-end architecture myself, licensed it internally, and patented the algorithmic core under my own name. I'd forgotten how proud I was of it until he dismissed it like a fax machine. The cherry on top? He started calling me project manager. I was the vice president of infrastructure systems. It said so on my badge, on my email signature, and in the patents filed with the USPTO. Project manager, like I was just some guy in khakis with a Gantt chart. He had no idea what that system actually was, what it meant to the company, what it meant to me, and that was fine. He didn't need to know. Not yet. What he also didn't know, that the license to my system, yep, my name on it, was about to expire in 3 days. And when it did, things were going to get real quiet, real fast. He came into my office Friday afternoon like he'd been practicing the entrance all morning. Loosened tie, fake casual smile, trying hard to look like he wasn't about to swing an axe. "Got a minute?" he said, like we hadn't already gone a full week without him bothering to learn what I did. I closed my laptop slowly. "Sure," I said, leaning back in my chair. Max took a deep breath like he was about to say something deep. "We're making moves to get leaner, faster, more agile," he began, his favorite buzzwords. Every sentence out of his mouth sounded like a pitch deck. He didn't sit, just hovered near the chair across from me. "This isn't personal," he said, which of course meant it absolutely was. "We're restructuring ops leadership. Your role, well, it's been identified as redundant." Redundant. That word bounced around my head for a second. Not inaccurate, technically. After all, I'd built a system that pretty much ran itself. But that wasn't the point. I nodded once. "Got it." Max looked surprised, like he expected a fight. Or maybe some pathetic pleading. But I wasn't going to give him that. He cleared his throat. "HR will follow up with the paperwork. We'll do a transition offboarding, 2 weeks or sooner if you prefer." "No handshake?" I asked. He blinked. "Sorry? You fired 2 guys by email. At least I got a face-to-face." He gave a tight, uncomfortable smile. "We need people who move fast, who understand where the industry's headed." "Right," I said. "People who know nothing about what we actually do." Max started to say something else, but I picked up my thermos from the corner of my desk and stood. He got the message. Without another word, he turned and walked out. I packed slowly, took my time. There wasn't much, just the thermos, a photo of the team from the first data center launch, and a USB stick with nothing on it but family photos. No systems, no secrets, just memories. Everything else I'd ever built for that place already ran on autopilot. Nobody said anything as I walked down the hall. A few heads turned, a couple nods. I passed Paul from product. He gave me a glance that said everything and nothing at once. No one said goodbye. It didn't make me angry, not really. I'd seen it before, how fast people go silent when someone walks the plank, like it's contagious. But I wasn't mad. I wasn't even hurt. I was curious. How long would they last without me? Because Sunday night, that's when the back-end license I'd personally authored, the very foundation of the company's core infrastructure, was set to expire. And I'd already lined up the legal notice. Clean, professional, enforceable. Max had no idea he'd just fired the only person who knew how to keep the company's heartbeat from flatlining. And by Monday morning, that smug smile of his, it'd be gone. Just like me. I didn't call anyone that weekend, didn't tell my brother, my ex, or any of my old teammates. I didn't need sympathy. I needed quiet. Friday night, I laced up my running shoes and hit the trail behind my apartment. 5 miles. No music. Just me and the rhythm of my feet on the gravel. I needed to think. By the time I made it back, sweat cooling on my neck, I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled out my old contract folder, the one labeled License Agreement, Ops Core Infrastructure, VER 3.1. Buried under 10 pages of boilerplate and corporate lawyer babble was the clause that mattered. Full IP rights retained by me, with a renewable 1-year usage license to Limestone Tech, expiring Sunday at midnight. No automatic renewal. I flipped to the notice section. It spelled out the process clearly. Written notification required at least 24 hours in advance of expiration, sent to legal and executive stakeholders. So I wrote the email. Subject line, Ops Core Infrastructure License, Notice of Non-Renewal. Body, short, clean, professional. No emotion, no drama, just language they couldn't ignore. I attached the signed contract and CC'd the company's legal team, HR, and Max. I double-checked every name, every clause, every bullet point. When I hit send, it was 10:43 p.m. Saturday night. No turning back. I closed my laptop, stood up, and poured a glass of water. My hands were steady. The system they depended on to process transactions, monitor back-end servers, and keep client dashboards up to date, it was mine. Written line by line over 6 years of sleepless nights and 2 a.m. code pushes, and in about 24 hours, it would stop working. I didn't do it for revenge. This wasn't spite. This was clarity. They wanted leaner, faster, more agile. They'd get it, right up until the moment the heart stopped beating. Sunday morning, I went for another run. Same trail, this time a little longer, 7 miles. The sun was out, air crisp. I didn't even check my phone when I got home. I read a book, made coffee, put on some Miles Davis. Around dinner time, my phone buzzed. First a call, then another, then an email from legal marked urgent. They'd read the contract. They knew what was coming. Max hadn't responded yet. Maybe he still thought it was a bluff. Maybe he was too proud to ask someone what the hell OpsCore actually was. But legal knew. They always knew. And by then, it was too late. The license would expire in a few hours. I watched the sunset from my porch. Let the quiet sink in, because come Monday morning, the silence was going to break. The first text came in at 8:07 a.m. sharp. Systems down. OpsCore unresponsive. Can't access dashboards. By 8:15, my inbox looked like someone had set off a fire alarm in a data center. CRM offline. Load balancers uncoordinated. Real-time client analytics dead in the water. At 8:21, Max emailed me. Subject, unexpected disruption. Body, hi Rick. Seems we're experiencing an issue with your former system. Can you advise? He even ended it with a smiley face. The kind of thing a guy like him probably thought passed for friendly leadership. At 8:29, he sent another one. Any update? Then a text. Need you to jump on a quick call. Just 10 minutes. Appreciate it. At 8:43, a third email. This is escalating. Let's resolve this ASAP. I didn't answer any of them. I was on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the neighbor's dog chase a squirrel. It was peaceful. Somewhere, entire dashboards were probably blinking red, and client liaisons were fielding angry calls they couldn't explain. At 9:04, an old teammate, Lance from DevOps, pinged me. Please tell me you did this. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't throwing confetti in the air. I was sipping French roast from my favorite mug, listening to the sound of panic unfold like jazz. Improvised, disjointed, frantic. At 9:17, my phone rang again. This time it was legal. I picked up. Rick, a voice said, Tracy from the legal department. Her tone was clipped, tense. We need to talk. Sure, I said. What's the issue? You know what the issue is, she said. We've confirmed that the license for the OpsCore system expired last night at midnight. You sent proper notice, but we'd like to discuss how we can resolve this situation quickly. I let a few seconds pass. Happy to help, I said, but I won't be rejoining the company. There was a pause. I see. Are you open to discussing a contract for external support? Possibly, I said, but it'll be under new terms, my terms. Another pause, longer this time. Can you put those in writing? Sure, I said, but not today. You'll hear from me by morning. I hung up and leaned back. The sky was clear, not a cloud in sight. By now, the office probably looked like a war room. Max pacing around, barking out useless orders. asking what OpsCore even was and why nobody just rebooted it. They had cut out the guy who held the system together without asking what strings were attached, and now I wasn't staff. I was a vendor. The price had just gone up, and whether they liked it or not, they were about to find out exactly what that meant. I walked through the front doors of Limestone Tech at exactly 9:12 Monday morning. No badge, no access code, just me in a gray sport coat and clean jeans, carrying nothing but a manila folder and my own leverage. The receptionist stiffened when she saw me. "Rick," she said, eyes wide, "they're expecting you upstairs." Of course they were. Legal was already seated when I stepped into the conference room, 4 people on one side of the long glass table. Max wasn't among them. Smart move. They knew better than to let him screw this up further. "Thanks for coming in," Tracy said, standing to shake my hand. I sat down, placed the folder in front of me, and waited. "So," she began with that forced corporate smile, "we'd like to renew the license for OpsCore and return to operational normalcy as soon as possible. We're prepared to offer the previous terms, including your full salary reinstated with—" I held up a hand. "No," she blinked. "Excuse me? I'm not rejoining as an employee," I said. "I'm here to negotiate a vendor contract, external, limited scope, fixed term." There was a moment of silence as her team digested that. I slid a single page across the table. "Here are my terms," I said. They read. No one said a word. $1, $2 million for 12 months of exclusive licensing and system support. Quarterly renewals after that. My name publicly credited as architect of the infrastructure on internal systems and documentation. No euphemisms, no buried footnotes. I want explicit language stating designed and built by Rick Brenner. One of the younger guys across from me shifted uncomfortably. Tracy kept her face neutral, but I saw it in her eyes. This wasn't what they expected. "You're asking for a lot," she said finally. "I'm asking for what it's worth," I replied. "And now you know exactly what that is." She tapped her pen against her legal pad. "We'll need to take this to the board." "Of course," I said, "but make no mistake. This offer is good through Friday. After that, it doubles." She stiffened. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's inflation." Another beat of silence. She nodded slowly. "We'll be in touch soon." I stood, collected my folder, and turned toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Tracy?" She looked up. "Tell Max not to email me again. I don't work for him." I left without another word. In the lobby, I passed by an intern holding a stack of outage reports. He gave me a look that landed somewhere between fear and awe. Good. Let them realize what happens when you mistake the backbone of your company for a line item on a reorg chart. They thought I was just a project manager. Now they knew better. And the price for forgetting just went up. I was halfway to the elevator when I heard his voice behind me. "Rick, hey, hold up." I didn't turn right away, just slowed enough for him to catch up. Max appeared at my side wearing that same smug expression, but this time there was something behind it, a tightness around the eyes, a sheen of sweat that didn't match the air-conditioned building. "Glad you came in," he said, trying to sound casual like we were co-workers running into each other at lunch. I didn't answer. He fell in step beside me as we walked. "Listen," he started again, "I think there's been some miscommunication these past couple weeks." I stopped walking. "Miscommunication?" I repeated. He smiled like we were in on some joke together. "Look, I get that emotions were high and maybe I came in a little fast, made some abrupt decisions. But I think we can agree that nobody intended for things to escalate like this." I turned toward him. "You fired me, Max, called me redundant, renamed the backbone of your company a legacy system without bothering to read the license agreement." He shrugged, still trying to keep that smooth tone. "We all make decisions under pressure." "No," I said, stepping in a little closer. "You made decisions out of ignorance." He blinked. "You didn't ask what OpsCore was. You didn't ask who built it. You didn't even think to ask why it was still running after 10 years. You thought it was plug and play, disposable, like me." He held up his hands. Okay, fair enough, but let's not make this personal." "It's not," I said, cutting him off. "It's contractual." That hit him. I could see it land. He dropped the fake smile and leaned in a little, lowering his voice. "You know the board's not going to like being strong-armed." "I'm not strong-arming anyone," I replied calmly. "I sent notice. I followed the contract. I showed up with terms. What I'm doing is business, something you should have understood before you started swinging an axe." He looked around like he wasn't sure if we were still alone. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We could have worked together." I smiled. "You had your chance. You wasted it." Um, then I turned, walked past him, and hit the elevator button. He didn't follow. As the doors opened, my phone buzzed. An email from Tracy. Subject, "Board would like to meet." Max's face as those elevator doors closed, that was the look of someone who just realized they weren't in control anymore. His authority was slipping, minute by minute, and I wasn't giving it back. The board meeting was scheduled for 11 a.m. I arrived early. They held it in the executive conference suite. Mahogany table, skyline view, too many bottled waters lined up like props in a commercial. 7 members, plus Tracy from legal. Max sat near the far end, fidgeting with a pen he wasn't using to write anything. I took the seat they offered me, right in the center, across from the board chair. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Brenner," said a woman in a charcoal blazer. "Helen Yates, chair of the board. We've reviewed the license documentation and your proposal. We'd like to hear your version of what happened." I nodded. "I'll keep it simple." I looked straight at them. Calm. Clear. "You built a company on OpsCore. That's the system I designed and developed over the course of 6 years. It's been your foundation: transaction processing, client analytics, server synchronization, back-end integrity. All of it runs through OpsCore." Several board members nodded. Some took notes. "I licensed it to Limestone under renewable terms," I continued. "You let that license expire. I gave proper notice. I followed the contract. This isn't personal." I paused. "But Max made it personal." Max shifted in his seat, ready to pounce, but Helen raised her hand slightly. He stayed quiet. He walked in with 0 technical briefings, canceled ops syncs, ignored architecture review, and declared OpsCore outdated without understanding what it was. He fired me, its architect, without reviewing the license. 3 days later, your systems crashed. Someone at the end of the table cursed under their breath. I kept going. When I left, I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't disable the system. I didn't pull the plug. I simply let the contract expire. The system did what it was built to do: terminate gracefully without license renewal. I let that sink in. Then I added, "I don't want my job back. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm offering terms for external support, clean and professional. But I also wanted to acknowledge that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was mismanagement." Max finally spoke. "Come on," he said, eyes wide. "You're seriously going to paint me as the villain here? I inherited a bloated legacy stack with 0 documentation." I cut in. "I left complete documentation. You never asked for it." He turned to Helen. "This is character assassination. He's trying to rewrite history." I looked at Helen. "Then ask your legal team who signed off on the license agreement. Ask HR about my termination. Ask infrastructure about the coverage gaps. There's nothing to rewrite. It's all in the records." The room fell quiet. Then one of the board members leaned forward. "What would you do in his seat, Rick?" I smiled, just a little. "I'd never be in his seat." A pause. "I'd be beside someone who actually understands the product, who listens before cutting, who knows the value of what's been built before trying to replace it." Helen glanced down at the notes in front of her, then back up. "Thank you, Mr. Brenner. We've heard enough." I nodded and stood to leave. Just as I reached the door, I heard Helen say, "Max, we'd like you to step out as well. The board needs to deliberate." That was 11:48 a.m. By 12:17, my phone buzzed. Subject: decision. Effective immediately. Body: Max Granger has been placed on administrative leave pending further review. I stared at the screen, then tucked the phone into my jacket pocket. The system held. So did the facts. And now, finally, so did the people who mattered. The internal memo dropped just after 2 that afternoon. From Board Communications, subject: interim leadership update. It was short, clinical, and clean. Exactly how these things always are. Max was on leave, effective immediately. The board had assumed direct oversight of operations during the transition. But the part that caught everyone's attention was near the end. We thank Rick Brenner for his critical contributions to Limestone's infrastructure and his continued support during this transition. As the original architect of the OpsCore system, Mr. Brenner's role in stabilizing and preserving company operations is recognized and deeply appreciated. There it was, black and white, my name. No euphemisms, no vague shout-out to former leadership, just credit, clear and public. By 3 p.m., people who wouldn't even look me in the eye a week ago were suddenly whispering congrats when I passed. An old colleague I hadn't talked to since 2019 sent a Slack message. About damn time they acknowledged you. And then legal followed up with a request. Could I help draft a new internal policy? IP protections, license procedures, whistleblower contacts, and something they were now calling engineering safeguards. I read the draft they sent. Half of it was copy-pasted from notes I wrote 5 years ago. This time, though, I'd be paid properly. I signed a 90-day consulting contract on my terms. No employee ID, no management structure, just me, my rate, and a clear list of deliverables. They didn't even blink at the numbers. They couldn't afford to. The narrative had flipped. I wasn't the guy who got fired. I was the guy who saved the company from a full-scale operational meltdown. The guy who owned the thing they thought they could replace. The one who didn't flinch when they tried to bury him under a bad decision. At 6:45 that evening, I got a hand-delivered envelope. Inside was a note, handwritten on real stationery. Rick, thank you for standing firm, for protecting the work, for reminding us of what we almost lost. Helen. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and placed it in the top drawer of my desk. This wasn't just a win, it was a rewrite. They'd tried to erase me quietly, push me out like a line item on a spreadsheet. Instead, I rose publicly, with credit, with control, and with the power to reshape the system that tried to delete me. This time, I was writing the story, and my name was already on the first page. I didn't go back full time. That was never the plan. 3 weeks after the board memo, I formally declined the offer to rejoin as VP. HR sent a follow-up just in case you reconsider, but I didn't even open it. I had nothing left to prove there. Instead, I opened my own firm, small, lean, selective. Brenner Systems. No fluff, no mission statements in Latin. Just me and 2 engineers I trusted, building infrastructure for companies that actually wanted it done right. I picked my clients, set my hours, wore sneakers to meetings, and didn't pretend to care about slide decks. My phone rang more than I expected those first few weeks. Some calls were from startups, a few from competitors. One, surprisingly, was from Linestone's interim CTO. Wanted me to review their new systems roadmap. I agreed, at double my old rate. One morning, I stopped by the old building, was picking up a package I'd accidentally routed to my old office. I stood in the lobby for maybe 2 minutes, waiting for the receptionist to buzz up when a kid, maybe 20, 21, walked past, then doubled back. Are you Rick Brenner? I turned. Yeah. She lit up. Holy crap. You're the guy, the ops core guy. I chuckled. Guess that's me. She hesitated, then said, we talk about what you did in onboarding, how you stood up to the execs. It's kind of a legend. I raised an eyebrow. A legend? She laughed nervously. I mean, yeah, it's part of our engineering culture presentation now. IP rights, code ownership, negotiating your value. They literally mention you by name. That stopped me for a second. She looked embarrassed. Sorry, I just wanted to say thanks. It matters. I nodded. Keep speaking up, I said. Don't wait for permission. She smiled and walked off. I stood there a minute longer. It hit me then. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about a bad boss or a broken contract. It was about changing the way people like me were treated. The ones who build the bones of the company, not just the face of it. The quiet ones who write the code, hold the knowledge, and rarely get the credit. I didn't need applause. I didn't need a statue in the break room. But if the next engineer got to speak up without fear, if their work got recognized, if they learned that value isn't about title or swagger, but ownership and boundaries, that was legacy. From fired to founder, I turned my dismissal into a blueprint, not just for systems, but for how to hold the line when everyone else forgets where it is. And this time, they wouldn't forget. 2 months after everything settled, I booked a cabin up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. No cell reception, no Wi-Fi, just pine trees, a stocked fridge, and a pile of books I'd been meaning to read for 5 years. I turned my phone off the moment I arrived. Not airplane mode. Off. No buzzing, no pings, no screens lighting up in the middle of the night. I slept in, hiked, cooked actual meals. One night, I made chili from scratch, listened to the fire crackle, and let the quiet sink into my bones. It felt like the first time in forever that I wasn't waiting for something to break. Not a system, not a relationship, not myself. That third night, I pulled out a journal. just a cheap spiral-bound notebook I'd bought at a gas station on the way up. I opened to the first page, clicked my pen, and wrote one line. They fired me thinking I'd vanish. I became the one name they couldn't ignore. I stared at it for a while, then closed the notebook. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, a stack of emails, and one notification that stood out. Max's departure had gone official. Not just leave. Final. Terminated. The internal memo said, "Conduct review concluded." But I'd heard from someone on the inside they were also auditing the other firings he'd done, including mine. And get this, Limestone had started citing my Ops Core documentation in official engineering training. They embedded parts of my shutdown email as a case study on license integrity. My credit, my terms. The code held, and so did I. Later that week, a junior engineer forwarded me a Slack thread from inside the company. It was titled, "The Day the Lights Went Out and How Rick Brenner Turned Them Back On." Dozens of reactions. Flame emojis, respect gifs. Someone even turned my license expiration notice into a desktop wallpaper. I laughed, not at them, just at the surreal absurdity of it. They'd tried to erase me quietly. And in the end, I'd written myself into every room they forgot I built. That system, the one they called outdated, it still runs better than ever because I rewrote it. And this time I wrote it to last.